So I don't know about you, but I had a disappointing Brussels sprout season. I planted them in the fall, I tended to them, I did everything I thought I was doing right. Lesson learned here is that I'm going to save Brussels sprouts for late summer planting, early fall. So the Brussels sprouts that I have in the ground right now have bolted quite badly no matter my efforts. And instead of just tearing them out and giving them to the animals, which I am giving them the stalks, I decided to pull off all of the leaves from 2 of my plants, and I'm going to blanch them and then vacuum seal them so that I can put them in stews and soups this winter. So instead of letting it go to waste, I'm going to preserve some of it. So this is the leaves from 2 of my plants, and then all of the pest-ridden leaves and the main stalks themselves went to the goats. In addition to being able to utilize the leaves, it's going to give me some more space to reclaim in my garden. So I'm going to plant another couple of crops for a second wave and have that space available for that. Don't fear though, I have not given up on Brussels sprouts. Like I said, I do have 6 more plants already in the ground. I planted them last week. I was able to find them on discount at the feed store. So I'm going to try for a fall harvest, which I think is actually the better way to do it, but I had seen Brussels sprout starts at the feed store early spring, so I went ahead and bought those and planted them. So the first thing I'm going to do is wash all of my leaves. I like to do a bowl of just fresh cold water, and then I put in a splash of distilled white vinegar, and then I also utilize a salad spinner. So this is the same method that I do to wash lettuce when it comes out of the garden. The splash of vinegar helps kill off any sort of little bugs or anything that's on it, and I've heard that it can actually help with preserving. If you don't have a salad spinner, I highly recommend that you get one. I thought that I was cleaning my lettuce the last few years just fine, and unfortunately I made a salad early on this year and there was a little tiny slug on my salad. How unappetizing is that? To have a beautiful salad all prepared, so eager to eat it, and then just your entire appetite is ruined because there's a freaking slug in your food. This is just terrible. So I've adopted this new method with the vinegar water rinse and then the salad spinner. Normally I would just do 1 lettuce leaf at a time when I'm doing this for lettuce, but because I've salvaged so many smaller Brussels sprout leaves, some of them are larger like this size, so I will do those a little bit more individually, but because they're smaller I can get away with doing more in the water at a time. And then once I have it in there, just let it spin and do its thing. So in this case it's not super imperative that you spin all the water off, but I have found that the spinner does take off, of course, excess water, but also sometimes there's a little bit of debris in the water still. So I'm going to utilize the spinner for that purpose, but because this is going to get blanched, I don't need it to be perfectly dry like I would for lettuce preserving, because with lettuce you want it to be really dry so that it keeps in the fridge. So I'm just going to transfer to a different bowl my clean Brussels sprout leaves, and I've got some water getting up to temperature for blanching on the stove. So once I have this all cleaned, I'm going to do some batches in the stove. It'll just blanch for about 2 minutes. So you can see this water, there's a lot of debris in there. There's a lot of floating, a lot of dirt and grass pieces and all of that. So this is exactly why I like to really rinse it off with a good vinegar bath beforehand. Additionally, one other thing I was going to say was that all of these little tiny leaves, I'm just going to leave them whole. And I actually want to leave the majority of everything whole so that when I take it out of the freezer bag later, I can do with it whatever I want. However, the larger leaves, I'm going to cut out this center stem. So I'm just going to cut a V shape out of that stem and cut it down to similar size to the little guys, just so that we have consistent size, and I think that it's going to keep a little bit better. So I'm going to finish cleaning these off, and then once the water's up to temperature, we're going to put it all into the hot water for a blanch. So while I'm waiting for my water to boil for the blanching still, I'm going to go ahead and prep a couple of my freezer bags. And you'll also see that I have some of the stems here from the larger leaves. That's going to end up going out to the chickens. So I'm not just going to toss that in the trash. That's not going to go to waste. So the vacuum seal bags, I don't know, I just kind of took an approximate size guess of how many leaves I thought might fit in and how much I might want to utilize for one serving. I don't like to freeze a giant bag and then have way more than what I actually want to use it for at that time. So I am just going to seal up the ends. Sorry, it's just a regular food saver. So it gives you a nice tight seal on the bottom, and then now it'll be ready to go when the Brussels sprouts are blanched. I think I'm just gonna prep 2 for now. I have a feeling I'm gonna use 3 bags, but it might shrink down a little bit, and then once you pull all that air out with the vacuum sealing. But I have the whole roll here. I like to get them, if I can, in varying size rolls so that I can cut it to length. But you can buy them in pre-made sizes too. But it has the seal function, so I can just make whatever size bag that I want. So anyway, I have my bags ready. I'm going to label on here that they're blanched Brussels sprouts and the date, and then they're ready to go in the freezer for later. So I'm just prepping my time and getting other components ready while I'm waiting. So I'm just separating out the larger leaves so that I can cut them down like I mentioned. So Brussels sprout leaves are actually highly nutritious. A lot of plants, their leaves actually have a lot more nutrition than the product that we harvest traditionally off of them. And they taste a lot like a Brussels sprout. They just don't have as strong of a cabbage flavor. They're kind of a little bit sweeter than something like kale. They can be used in place of things like spinach, for example. They're often, you don't really see them in the grocery store because we just buy the individual Brussels sprouts that actually grows on the stalk. But the leaves are actually really valuable and edible as well as the flowers. So I've been told. I did not save the flowers off of these. I let the goats go ahead and have that because I really just wanted to save the greens. So, like I said, don't mind my cores, I just want to cut out the center of each leaf. I'm going to discard that, and so now I have 2 halves, and I don't know, depending on the size of the leaf, I think I'm just cutting it down in thirds. That's similar to some of the other leaf sizes, and I'm going to include that in with the rest. So again, while I'm waiting on the water for blanching to boil, which it's actually getting pretty close, then I'm going to continue prepping all of this. You'll note my kitchen is not Pinterest ready. It's not perfect by any means. I work a full-time job, and I've got the horses and the farm, and we've got kids here, and it just is what it is. So I like to showcase the more real-life aspects and less what the idealistic image should be. But that's just me. That's just how I live my life. Things are clean, you know, but functional. It is a farm after all. So yeah, there's dishes in the sink behind me, and there's laundry to do, and there's stuff on the dining room table, but it is what it is. That's real life, I tell you. Trying to be photo ready at any given moment can be really draining. Anyway, so I'm going to finish these up, and we're eventually going to get over to the blanching. Alright, so the water's finally boiling. I don't need it to be a really strong rolling boil, but it does need to be close. Now, I'm not a chef, so I can't tell you if my method for blanching is 100% accurate. I'm pretty sure the water should have ice cubes in it, but it's pretty warm in the house, and I figured if I threw ice cubes in there, it was just going to be a waste. So you just want to get the leaves in here for about 2 minutes. The goal is not to cook them. You'll see that they start to turn really bright green, and you know it's getting close. And luckily I've got time right here so I can keep a good eye on it. And once they get close, then I'm just going to transfer them into the water and let them cool. Having the cold water, to my understanding, helps stop the cooking process, and that's what the whole goal is. We just want to blanch them, get them so that they're ready to go into the freezer. Couple of stalks that I missed. Alright, so this is where your salad spinner comes in handy again. I'm going to put all of the blanched Brussels sprouts into the salad spinner, and this is the third batch. I did 3 batches of it because although it didn't matter after washing because we blanched, when you store greens, you want them to be dry going into the bag. All right. Push, and then you'll see that I have the blanched Brussels sprouts in here, each layered with a paper towel in between to help absorb even more of the water that the salad spinner might not have gotten off. And you can see just how much water comes out with the salad spinner. It's great. So much water comes off. I wouldn't say that they come out perfectly dry, although unblanched seems to come out a little bit drier than these. But it does take off quite a bit. Transfer them into here for the secondary drying process. It does smell like Brussels sprouts. Now that they've been blanched, it does smell like it. Alright, so I'm just going to finish getting these dried off, and then I'm going to pack them into each of my freezer bags that are now labeled Brussels sprouts. Oh, and I should add, I'm only going to plan to have them in the freezer bags in the freezer for about 3 to 4 months. I can't tell you for sure how long they'll last, but I want to have that in mind to use them around the fall, which is when I'm probably going to be wanting to make soups and stuff with them anyway, so that timeline will work out really well. But with anything, the longer it stays in there, the less fresh it remains. And going to all this effort, I want it to work out. I'm just going to pack them into the bags. I actually think 2 bags is going to be just fine. Just perfect, in fact. just get them a little bit more even. Well, it's pretty close. I'm just going to get it lined up, get it sealing. And there you go, 2 finished bags of Brussels sprout leaves ready to be used for later. 0 waste from the plant. These are going to be great in some soup.